Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Runehammer Games' new tabletop role-playing game, Bearcats, and how it specifically reveals one of the greatest nested fallacies contained within Dungeons & Dragons. All right, let's talk about it. Okay, so first let's talk about Runehammer Games' new tabletop role-playing game, Bearcats. It is really wonderful. By the way, Runehammer Games is just knocking it out of the park at this point with almost every single release, really. So basically, Runehammer Games, they're most famous for index card RPG. Really tremendous kind of boiled down OSR minimalist version of Dungeons & Dragons. Absolutely fantastic game. Really powerful. It's one of my favorite tabletop role-playing games that is purchasable today. It's really amazing. Runehammer Games also showcases one of the best artists in all of tabletop role-playing game today. His name is Brandish Gilhelm. He does almost all the art for Runehammer Games. He started to do work for Gallant Knight Games. He started to do work for Eric Bloat Games, and his work is just absolutely stunning. It really is fantastic. I've reached a point where whenever Runehammer Games produces any new standalone game, whether it's a core rulebook or some of their more unusual standalone products, which I'll talk about. Bearcats is one of those standalone unusual products. I snap it right up. I buy, like, it drops on their electronic store, I buy it. Like, that's the flow. Like, they are really amazing, all right? Okay, so let's talk about Bearcats. What is Bearcats? Bearcats is a really unusual product. It is a standalone core, actually, it is a core rulebook, tabletop role-playing game, and it is called Bearcats, and that is a play on words on Wolverines from the movie Red Dawn. So Bearcats is a skin of the movie Red Dawn. Okay, so it's a presentation of all the action and the excitement of Red Dawn in a new format and in a new tabletop role-playing game. But it has some unique attributes. We'll talk about it. So one, of course, it's non-licensed, right? So this is a non-licensed version of an homage to Red Dawn. It's not really Red Dawn was a movie from the early 1980s. It starred Patrick Swayze, and the idea was, in the early 1980s, the fiction story was that the Russians invaded America. And it was the story of one small town and how the teachers and the mechanics and the football players and even like the cheerleaders fought against these Russian invaders, right? It's a classic film. It's absolutely fantastic. And it's got a lot of love even to this day. It was very poorly remade in the 2010s, I think, and that is very skippable. But the original is an absolutely amazing movie. So what Runehammer Games did was they took Red Dawn and they boiled it down into this game called Bearcats. The entire game is less than 40 pages long, right? Now, Runehammer Game accomplishes more in 40 pages than most games accomplish in 400. It's truly incredible. But one thing that's really unique about Bearcats is Bearcats does not have any rule system, right? So what it does is it has classes, and it has lineages or heritages, what we used to call races. It fully defines all of the opponents. It fully defines the world itself, right? But then the way these are presented, they're presented in a hierarchical manner, saying, this character has these attributes, and you can map these to whatever rule system you want. So if you were, you could take this to Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. You could take this to Index Card RPG. You could take this to Genesis, the narrative dice system for Fantasy Flight Games, and it would drop right in. It's very easy, very intuitive. It would take a few hours, maybe if you bought this game on Monday, you will be done reading it by Tuesday. Your conversion can be done by Thursday, and you could be playing a great game on Saturday night. It's that simple and that intuitive. Also, the game costs $7.50. It's just a fantastic value. It is 5 out of 5 stars. It's a brilliant game. I absolutely love it. right? Now, not only does it stand as this awesome new Runehammer game, Runehammer Games game, right? This Runehammer Games core rulebook, but it also reveals one of the greatest fallacies that has existed in Dungeons & Dragons. And now that it reveals this fallacy, it really makes me wonder, what do we, once you see a fallacy, so what is a nested fallacy? One of the greatest nested fallacies in Dungeons & Dragons, I'm about to tell you, right? But a nested fallacy is a falsehood contained within, right? So what is one of the greatest nested fallacies of Dungeons & Dragons? Well, it's revealed by Bearcats. So Bearcats is structured after Red Dawn, and in Red Dawn there is Patrick Swayze. Patrick Swayze is I think he's like a mechanic, right? But he becomes the leader. He becomes the leader of this ragtag band of townie fighters, right? And he's leading kids from the high school football team. He's leading cheerleaders. He's leading teachers. He's leading mechanics and hardworking stalwarts from the city, right? He's a leader, right? And Bearcat says, you will choose a leader from among your players, and here's how you do it, right? You choose your leader by a vote among the players, and the DM chooses which one of these methods is chosen, right? By the way, just like every modern game, there's a little note at the very bottom saying, you can ignore this if you don't like it. I hate those notes, but they're always there now. It's amazing how few designers just have the kind of like the wherewithal to just stand behind what they're putting on the page. I don't get it. Anyway, all right, but it does have this leadership aspect in the game, right? And it's saying the way you choose the leader is there's 3 methods, and the DM chooses the method. The DM says, okay, all players vote, right? And then you vote, and the highest vote gets to be the leader. Or you roll off. Every single player rolls off, and the player with the highest die roll on a D20 is now the leader. Or the player who is the oldest, right? Any of those are good, and they're all chosen, right? So this is one of the greatest nested fallacies of Dungeons & Dragons, and I didn't see it until I saw Bearcats. I'm like, holy cows! Dungeons & Dragons teams, war bands, adventuring groups do not have leaders. They absolutely do not have leaders, right? Now, I'm fully aware Dungeons & Dragons has a skill called leadership, but leadership can be picked up by anyone, right? And you've played Dungeons & Dragons. You know that if you have a leadership of 3, that does not make you the leader of the group. In fact, the default way that Dungeons & Dragons is played is that an adventure group has no leader. Also, the game has absolutely no mechanics to reward leadership in the game of a group. It also, of an adventuring group, and when I say an adventuring group, I mean player characters, fighter, rogue, cleric, wizard, right? That's your core adventuring group. Now, you can mix those up. You can have different, classes in there, whatever. But that's an adventuring group, right? And Dungeons & Dragons says leadership is not important to these teams. Now, why is this a nested fallacy? Well, if you're paying attention to life, this is absolutely untrue, right? So basically, I see this every day. Any team without leadership accomplishes less or nothing, right? Like that is a hard, cold fact of life. This is very, very true. This weekend, I was working with a nonprofit group, and we were cleaning up after an event, right? And the leader of our group immediately, grabbed clean water and a towel and began scrubbing down these tables, right? And so I'm like, are we supposed to do that, right? Like, because I was supposed to be helping with the cleanup, right? And I realized there's 4 or 5 other people on the team, right, who are just standing around as the leader scrubs down the table with a rag, a small bucket of water, and and a small bucket of water, right? And that clearly, and the water had a light cleaning solution in it, right? And I was like, where did he get that? Like, and we're all looking around, seeing if there's any, and the reality is we lacked leadership, right? And so he kept, going on his merry way. Few people literally just left. Were like, I'm not being led. Nobody's calling me to clean. And they let. It was really poor leadership, right? And that was just one simple task, right? And I can tell you right now, I've worked in the corporate world for many years, and leadership is absolutely critical. You would not believe the amount of money that my companies pay in order to get good leaders and also make the leaders they have better. Leadership is absolutely critical, right? And even beyond that, right? In order to accomplish great goals, right? You need a leader, and that leader will give sound, wise orders most of the time, fair orders. But I will tell you right now, do not for 1 second forget that a leader will frequently give arbitrary and even wrong orders, right? But they are followed because they are a leader, right? And if you get into a team where people are very used to doing whatever the heck they want, you are going to have an unorchestrated mess, right? And this is the issue, right? Dungeons & Dragons, for 45 years, has been teaching 13-year-olds, 23-year-olds, 33-year-olds, and 93-year-olds that if you get together 4 people and they don't have a clear leader, they can slay dragons together. Well, that is a nested fallacy. It is completely and utterly untrue, right? Now, the reality is, this is not, like, no marks get taken away from Gary Gygax for missing this, right? He was creating a new genre, a new art vector. He was creating a new vector that contained literature and art and play, right? Like, he had enough on his plate, right? He was creating something new. He was creating a new element of Americana. He can't do everything, right? But this is a problem for every design lead since, right? Mike Merle should have caught this, right? And here's the issue. It is my strong belief that Kate Welch will be the design lead on 6th edition, and it is my strong belief that work on 6th edition has already secretly begun, exactly like work on Pathfinder 2E ran in secret for 2 years before it was announced, even for the playtest, right? So here's the issue. Should this be fixed in 6th edition? My answer is a stone hard cold yes, right? And here's why. So, one, if you disagree with what I'm saying, I can point you to a very historical example to prove my point, right? There was a group that ran exactly like a D&D group. A group that was like, we don't need a leader. We can accomplish things together without a clear leader. This group was Occupy Wall Street. They came out in 2011. They shook their fist at Wall Street, right? And in a year, they evaporated. They literally just evaporated, and they accomplished nothing, right? And that's what you get when you have no clear leadership, right? And the reason why is nature abhors a vacuum, right? If there is no leader, that group will disband or it will gain a leader, right? Now, one of my mentors taught me this a long time ago. Leadership comes in 2 forms, right? It comes in the form of authority. Now, a group can choose a leader and say, I am the lead, and everyone says, you are the leader, and the leader says, I am the leader, and the leader leads, right? And this is critically important because when you go to slay a dragon, the wizard might have a cool new spell that he really wants to cast, right? But the leader could say, hey, I know you just got that new spell, but it's not going to fit our current fighting style. I want you to cast this, this, and this, right? And the reality is that's the issue, is a lot of time, and everybody on that team, right, who generally are going to be less skilled than the leader, right, or less wise than the leader, or less fast than the leader, right, they're going to need direction, and teams need direction. If you're going to accomplish something significant, you need direction, right? Now, that direction can come from authority, or it can come from influence. This happens a lot. When teams do not define who their leader is, when they're like, we don't have a leader, they have a leader, right? It is the person who, with their own charisma and their own sense of command, takes leadership without calling themselves a leader. they are absolutely no less of a leader, right? So next time you're in a group and you think it doesn't have a leader, just look around. It's got a leader, right? The leader is not leading from authority. They're leading from influence, right? So just be aware of that. And so Occupy Wall Street is a perfect example that teams that work without leaders evaporate, right? Or they accomplish less, or they accomplish nothing, right? Now, again, of course, I am talking at the macro level. There are some teams who work without a leader who accomplish some trivial things in a short period of time. But at the macro level, when you look at teams and you're looking to drive performance, when you're looking to slay dragons, you need a leader, right? And this is a nested fallacy within Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, right? It's actually a nested fallacy that exists in every single version of Dungeons & Dragons to date, right? And now it's got to be fixed. Now that Bearcats, Runehammer Games Bearcats, has shown that good, cool core rulebooks give mechanical benefits to leadership, right? Then basically we need to put it into 6th edition. So I really think that Kate Welch should put leadership into Dungeons & Dragons 6th edition. It's important, right? Now, what should be the mechanical benefit of leadership? Well, there should be many basically benefits to leadership for the team. First and foremost, at first level, you know, and when a team coalesces into the game, I think the first thing you do is you just simply state, okay, a team with a leader, the leader has the ability to grant a standard action to one player character that can see or hear them, and that is once per turn. All right. Now, by the way, that also brings up the issue of the warlord character or the marshal, right? I'm fully aware that those are in there, but even that was just using the leadership skill to kind of spice leadership onto a campaign and saying, oh, I'm going to be the leader in this particular moment, but I'm not the leader of the group, right? I'm telling you, player characters have been incredibly allergic to groups having leaders for a very long time. And I really think the other thing is, like, this is a very real nested fallacy within Dungeons & Dragons. Is this a dangerous nested fallacy within Dungeons & Dragons? I'm hesitant to say it's a dangerous nested fallacy within Dungeons & Dragons, but I don't think it's benign, right? The idea of teaching 13-year-olds, 23-year-olds, 33-year-olds, 93-year-old people that teams can accomplish epic tasks together without leadership is just a very bad idea, because it does not match real life in any way, right? So I feel really strongly that that leadership should become leadership of a player character group. Every player character group in 6th edition should have a leader, right? And I think that the game should choose one of the options that was presented within Runehammer Games Bearcats. Dungeons & Dragons should choose one of those, not 3 of those, right? And then at that point, actually, you know what? The fact that Runehammer Games says the Game Master can choose which one of those methods, I like that. That's fine. That's fine. I think they should use exactly the same thing in Dungeons & Dragons 6th edition. And by the way, you can totally do that. Rules are not actually copyrightable. So, you know, worlds and settings are, but rules are not. Right? So, so I'm pretty sure they could do, they of course should check before they do that, but, you know, with a good copyright lawyer or whatever, but I'm fairly certain that that's the case. So they should absolutely go down that road and use that model. And by the way, I don't think Runehammer Games would mind that much, because Runehammer Games is borrowing quite a bit from Dungeons & Dragons. So, like, it's not that, like, it's not a big deal. Like, again, rules are not copyrightable, right? You know, like, how many games literally use exactly, like, strength, you know, intelligence, constitution, you know, all those kind of things straight from Dungeons & Dragons, tons of them, right? So, so basically, I definitely think they should add this in, and I think it would really make for a better game. So I think leadership should be added to 6th edition, and it should have a mechanical benefit, and it should apply to every single group, right? That's my opinion, but I'd love to hear your opinion. Please let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.